Hello, unforgettable vocalist. My name is Gerald, and I am the host of this podcast that you're listening to. Is the Reclaim Your Voice podcast. And here on the Reclaim Your Voice podcast, we set the stage for your voice to be at its greatest potential. We help you to take your singing from unsure to unforgettable. We give you the tools to help you stop losing your voice, break your bad singing habits, and find your unique sound. If any of those things apply to you, if you're looking for any of those things, that you're in the right place. This is the place for all of those different things. If you are here because you're singing every week and you're losing your voice, then we're gonna have some answers for you. If you are trying to get better in your singing, but you find yourself plateauing in your practice and you're not getting better, and that's really what we're gonna be talking about today, then it's for you. This podcast is also for you if you've always struggled with building confidence in your own voice and you aren't quite sure if you'll be able to hit the goals that you have for your music. Again, this is for you. And if you secretly believe that you can't sing, this podcast is for you. So this week on the Reclaim Your Voice podcast, we're going to be hitting a phrase that I've heard, especially in the music world. It's a phrase that I've heard over and over and over and over again. And in my university career, it's a phrase that got debunked for me. And I wanted to kind of take you through the debunking of that myth. But first, let's actually give you what the phrase is. The phrase is simply something familiar we've always heard: practice makes perfect. And I want to tell you today, if we're getting churchy with it, practice does not make perfect. I'll say it again. Practice does not make perfect. A lot of us have been trained to pursue the mirage of perfection for far too long, and I want you, and especially in singing, I want to help you to be in a place where you are setting yourself up to actually improve, and you're not actually chasing the mirage of perfection. So we're gonna do a little bit of both. Mainly, we're gonna be debunking what practices really looks like, but also in doing so, we'll be able to break that mirage of perfection. So firstly, let's even just say that. First of all, perfection is a mirage. The real goal of practice is actually improvement. When people are looking to practice and to work hard and to get better in their craft, if we make perfection the goal, then there will never be a true measure of whether or not you've improved. But if you make the goal improvement, then you actually are steadily able to bring yourself to a place where you are radically and sustainably improved in your in your craft, in this case, in your singing. However, that's only if your practice isn't misguided, and that is what I really wanted to debunk today. So let's break this down into 5 different points. The first point is going to be simply that determination without strategy leaves progress up to chance. And if you are working against the makeup of your voice, you will work your voice into the ground. So when we hear the phrase practice makes perfect, it's supposed to build some type of determination in the person that's hearing it. It's supposed to be like, oh my gosh, this is going to motivate me to work hard. But especially in singing with something that is so, that requires a level of skill, and not just skill, but a level of knowledge, and just a breaking of the ignorance to actually have the knowledge to actually use your voice and use your body to actually support your voice. That determination, without that information or without that strategy that comes from the knowledge, is actually blind determination. And what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing in a lot of cases is people that are working on their own, creating environments for themselves of determination, but they're doing it without knowledge. And without that knowledge, they have no strategy. And so the people that are working better at their craft, singing through their songs, singing at different events, etc., so forth, trying to build their repertoire, and build their ability as a singer, they're leaving their progress up to chance. Why? Because if you only have a certain level of information and you go blindly into something, you're literally just feeling around in the dark as if you actually as if you can actually get there by just feeling around in the dark. Now, a lot of people that have felt around in the dark have quote unquote gotten there, but actually a lot of the people that we felt that have not, for example, not had voice training or never worked with a vocal coach, a lot of people think that they just, came out of the womb singing, when in reality they actually have a lot of upbringing, especially for people that especially black singers that are famous in R&B and pop and gospel genres. A lot of them are coming out of the church, and people don't realize that an environment where people are better than you are singing and you're actually hearing and learning from them, that is actually an element of practice. But it's not just an element of practice, it's an element of gaining that knowledge and that strategy, because you know what you're supposed to sound like. A lot of people don't necessarily go to church or didn't necessarily have 20 years of church upbringing to back them up. And so a lot of people are running into practice with like a deer in headlights. And so what I don't want is that you actually put yourself in a place to be determined, but be determined without strategy. It's like a bass that's trying to actually belt like Tori Kelly. They don't have the knowledge to see that their voice is different from Tori Kelly's, or a 20-year-old first soprano who's trying to create the weight of a 40-year-old Beyonce. They're working against their voices, right? So and I'll even give you a tip there. There are parts of your voice that are immutable, and if you work against those parts, you actually will be working yourself into the ground. It's like it's like telling a human to fly to jump off a cliff and just fly. There are laws, gravity being one of them, that actually will pull that person to the ground faster than they can say and that person will really hurt themselves, because they didn't actually study. They didn't go for the knowledge. They didn't look for the strategy to actually be able to get to start flying. So they should have bought a plane or something. But that's my point. Determination without strategy / knowledge, it only leaves your progress up to chance. Right? That's my first point. My second point is really the debunking that I heard in university that actually changed my life, where it just simply says that practice does not make perfect, practice makes permanent. Practice without prescription will reinforce the problem. Right? I'll say that again. I feel like I say things again here but I'll just do that because it's my podcast. We're going to say it again. Practice does not make perfect. It actually makes permanent. And practice without prescription will only reinforce the problem. That second part reinforces what I was saying about determination without strategy. However, a lot of people don't realize that when they practice, whatever they practice is what's going to become permanent. Right? This a great example of this is scales. If you are, first of all, let's talk about piano. With piano, there's specific fingerings in order to play scales. If you are using the wrong fingering in order to finger your scale, what you'll end up doing is you'll be setting yourself up to fail later when it's time to play pieces that require a knowledge of fingering that was built in the scale, that was built in the right way of doing the scale. I know that was a really weird sentence, but basically, you may end up learning how to play the major scale, but because the fingering was wrong, you actually set yourself up to fail later, right? And a lot of people, when they are building their voices, are building up their voices and practicing in a way that will actually set them up to fail later. Sure, they may be able to sing through one song, but they may not be developing the stamina to sing through multiple songs in one night because they were singing too hard, for example. Or because they're starting songs in wild keys that won't be sustainable for them in the long run, right? There are a lot of things that can work against a person's practice, but but let's not even zoom in on that. Let's zoom in on the fact that whatever you do in your practice is going to become permanent. And again, if you don't have the right prescription, if you don't have an expert that's actually showing you how you're actually supposed to be setting yourself up, setting your voice up for the future and your sound for the future, you'll be creating a level of, what's the word? Just a level of ignorance that will be permanent, and a level of dysfunction in your singing that will be permanent. Now, we can undo things. There are things that can be undone, right? Like the more you practice, the more permanent something becomes. But right practice can actually, and the proper strategy can actually undo a level of permanence that you created. But without that knowledge, you're not going to get that. And you can only get that from an expert. You can only get that from someone who's been where you want to go and where you are right now. Right now, let's, again, we're talking about practice not making perfect, right? We're looking at improvement. What we're looking for at the end of practice is not necessarily perfection, because perfection is a mirage. We're looking for radical, sustainable improvement, right? And which brings me to my third point. It simply says that radical improvement requires an all-around approach and an all-around perspective, right? So this is us kind of talking more about the strategy and the knowledge piece. If you want to actually progress in your singing, you don't just need to work hard, right? And that's actually my fifth point, so I won't get ahead of myself. But the reality is, you need to be able to have someone that's able to see from all of the different angles that you're not seeing from. When someone is blindly going into creating, I guess, just creating momentum in their singing and getting better, often the only reference point that they have is their favorite singer's favorite song. And so they start singing, but they don't necessarily have that input from an expert to actually show them, how they might be actually setting themselves up to fail later, how they might actually be overworking themselves, how they can actually work smarter, right? You can improve by yourself, but you won't necessarily get that radical, sustainable improvement that will actually help you further along down the line and not hurt you, right? The only way that you're going to be able to get that is from an all-around perspective, right? And an all-around approach. And often, a lot of us that are singers tend to rely on our own ears and on ourselves without actually getting an outside source to actually comment, critique, and constructively critique, and actually help us to get to actually push us in the right direction. A lot of us have just left ourselves to our own devices and getting better on our own rather than pulling on the knowledge of somebody else. Why are you gonna do that, right? Smart work. Anyway, I'm not gonna get ahead of myself. That was my third point. Radical improvement requires an all-round approach and an all-round perspective. Now, point number 4: repertoire or song knowledge without theory. And I'm not talking music theory, but repertoire or song knowledge without theory will shackle you in your application to other songs. So what I mean by this is that, when we start practicing, usually what happens is we look for a great song that we love and we start to sing the song, right? Now, that's good. But if you're not careful, it can actually shackle you. We can learn our favorite songs and learn how our voice operates in a particular song. But if we don't actually learn the techniques that song is teaching us, and actually learn, actually learn what how the skills that we learn in that song can be applied to other songs, we're actually just working on one-off situations. It's like we're like, okay, I'm gonna work on this song and then I'm gonna work on this song. Whereas you can actually take you can actually take from the inner makings of a song, and you can actually apply what you are learning in that song to a whole bunch of other different songs and situations. And if you actually widen your scope and actually create those avenues of application, you will actually get a broader understanding of not just your voice in one circumstance, but in multiple circumstances. But you're going to need someone that's actually going to create those opportunities for you to learn, right? For us that are by ourselves, that are just, wanting to become an unforgettable vocalist, we can be very one-track minded, but a coach is actually going to help you to actually expand your knowledge and expand your perspective, right? So it's not just about having, a one-off song experience, which brings me to my final point. And I love this point. Smart work will always speed ahead of hard work. Woo! I'll say it again. Smart work will always speed ahead of hard work. Now, this is a little bit controversial because we praise people that actually do a lot of hard work, and this actually comes from episode 8, the episode I did last week. I actually said something that week about hard work, and I can't even fully remember what I said, but I remember I made a note of it, and I wanted to actually harp into it a little bit more, because a lot of people think that hard work is the way to actually, being a great vocalist, and or just to being the best at your craft, period. Like, I've heard, in fact, I love working out, and because of that, my Instagram algorithm is filled with fitness channels, and I've seen or fitness Instagrammers, whatever, and I'm sure you've seen these videos, these motivational videos where they're like, no one's gonna do the hard work for you. You need to get up and you need to do this and blah 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 blah. But best believe, if you try to bench press or squat 500 pounds right from the jump because you want to work hard, you will kill yourself, literally, right? I don't want that for you in your singing, right? So the way that you create smart work that is not, or the way that you create work that is not blind, but work that is very smart, is you simply get in touch with a coach. Get in touch with somebody who's been where you are, who's able to see from so many different vantage points, and is able to give you a prescription that is specific to your voice, right? You're not looking for something that is completely and utterly general that applies to any and everybody, but something that's specific to you. And that is what I've started to do in, working with the singers that I have in Reclaim Your Voice. Reclaim Your Voice is the avenue where I have been able to see singers actually find that one thing that was keeping them held back in their practice, and that one wall that they were hitting, they can actually jump over that wall because I was able to give them my perspective. And I want to actually take you on that journey as well. I want you to actually book a call with me at reclaimyourvoice.ca/call. And I want you to actually start the journey of discovering what your voice can actually do. Because a lot of you have been practicing, like you've been faithfully working hard, but what you've been doing is you've been hitting a wall, and you have been trying to work yourself through it, but your own emotions and your mindset, along with your lack of knowledge of technique and the knowledge of your own voice, it's all been keeping you behind that wall. And I want to see you jump over that. I want to see you conquer that. So I want you to book a call with me at reclaimyourvoice.ca/call. Let's have a conversation and let's see what's not working with your voice. And I also want you to continue to listen to this podcast. So subscribe to this channel, because this is the place where we reclaim your voice. And also, if you're listening, well, I should have done it reverse, but whatever. If you're listening, I want you to follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to podcasts. And I want you to actually break that mentality of, just practicing blindly, and actually let's get some strategy under your belt, right? So you'll be able to do that in booking a call with me. You'll be able to do that in continuing to listen to this podcast. I'm O'Neal Gerald Donald, and I'm so thankful that you've listened. I will not see you But I will chat with you another time on the Reclaim Your Voice podcast. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, whatever time of day you're listening to this. All right. Okay. Bye, everyone.